Hi, welcome back to McMorris Prosthetic Services. Today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about phantom pain. Phantom pain is something that we all deal with, in one way or another. I think every amputee has had a little experience with it. If you haven't, it's a blessing and a curse to not have to deal with phantom pain. I think that there are benefits. I think that I find even just some emotional benefits of phantom pain. And then there are also a lot of downsides. And, right now in Salt Lake, the weather is starting to shift a little bit and go from summer to fall and get a little bit cooler. And then obviously we'll go from there into winter. And this time of year is when I tend to have a little bit more of the spikes, especially again as the temperature drops. There will be 2 or 3 days this fall that the temperature drops and then kind of sits there. And when those days happen, I could definitely feel it. I notice, and it could be a very frustrating, difficult thing to deal with. We'll just start from the beginning. I remember I amputated the morning of my amputation. My leg was an open wound from the middle of my thigh down to my ankle bone, and I was wearing boots on both feet so that I didn't end up developing a drop foot, and my foot would stay upright. I didn't get any type of contracture. I could do what I needed to do. And I remember the morning of my amputation, that boot was digging into where my leg was an open wound on the inside of my calf. It was just digging in there, and I remember thinking man, that is really uncomfortable. But I'm gonna cut this thing off in 30 minutes, and so I'm not gonna bother a nurse about it. And then the next thing I remember is coming out of amputation and being holy cow, they didn't do it. What happened? How come we didn't amputate? Because that feeling is still there. That hurts quite a bit. Take the blanket off, my foot's gone. And that was a tough thing to wake up and be why does this foot that I just cut off, why is it still hurting me? I cut it off to get rid of the feelings that I was feeling from it. Why is that still there? And it was pretty frustrating. And really, I don't know. I think that I had a little bit of somebody mentioned to me phantom pain is a thing before amputation, but I didn't have somebody tell me phantom pain is something you're gonna deal with. And it's tough to prepare somebody for that because everybody experiences it differently, right? I'm doing pretty good now, but there are definitely times and have been times where I have to go to the emergency room to get it taken care of. And I know other people that do that, go get epidurals. And then I also know people that are yeah, it doesn't really bother me. And really what phantom pain is our brains are sending signals down to my brain's sending a signal down to my foot, trying to figure out where my foot is, trying to get my foot to respond back. And those nerve endings obviously are sending back, that they're missing at some point, and they're firing back. And so it's creating a feeling of my foot is there. And right now I can feel my foot, I can move it up and down and wiggle my toes, and I always can. And most of the time it feels like I'm wearing a compression sock or something warm and comfortable. But yeah, 2 nights ago, it wasn't the worst I've ever had, but it was I woke up 4 or 5 times throughout that night to phantom pain. And really that was an improvement. Usually a year ago, the same type of night would have probably pushed me towards not sleeping for 2 days, 3 days, and then going to the emergency room. And when I go to the emergency room, they don't know what to do. They say, what do you do for this? And I say, give me a ketamine injection. And they give me a ketamine injection. And then 20 minutes later, I feel great. And I go home and I sleep. And usually that's what happens is it takes me not sleeping for 2 to 3 days because the phantom pain is keeping me awake and not letting me get comfortable. And usually I'll fight that for, again, 2 or 3 days until it's I can't do this anymore. I have to sleep. I have to, do my daily life. And so then I'll go to the emergency room And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to push it off that far and then still end up having to go to the emergency room and then getting a bill for $1,500 or whatever it is afterwards. It's very frustrating. And I've done that cycle at least like 5 to 7 times in the last 12 years of being an amputee. I would say like really once a year at least I have to do that. And it's very frustrating for me. It's when I first lost my leg, I was taking gabapentin, and then I was taking tramadol to help with all of those things. And for a while, those things did help with my phantom pain, I think. But at a certain point, I mean, being 150% honest, I started abusing tramadol, and I started having seizures. Some of the seizures were because I was doing way too much and putting too much stress on my body too early after my accident. But another big part of it, I know for sure, was that I was abusing tramadol, and so I decided one day that I was gonna be done with that. And then about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when me and my wife first moved in together, one day I just decided like I'm not gonna refill my gabapentin prescription, and haven't filled it since then. And it's been like, wow, I feel 1,000 times better. Like I really, like gabapentin for me, and I'm not a medical expert or a doctor or anything. These are just my experiences. And if you are curious about any of this stuff, consult with your doctor, etc. I'm not a medical expert, but for me, when I was taking gabapentin, I started to notice like I am so addicted to this stuff. Like I can't sleep without it. I really can't function without it. But when I do take it, it's not like I feel better. It's not like my phantom pain was gone. It's more like I was just foggy and dull. And I took that stuff for 8 years, 7 years, like a long time. And now I see, people send me studies of like, is gabapentin linked to dementia? Different things. Everything's linked to something. So I can't really live in that world with the amount of medications that I've taken in my life. But it was like, man, once I got off gabapentin was really when I started to be able to, communicate with my wife better and function better throughout a day. And so I was like, yeah, I'm done with this stuff. But then that's when I really started to have the like, okay, I'm gonna have to go to the hospital. Before that, I didn't really have that too often. It was like I was just always on gabapentin. That did the job for me. So I never got to like that high peak where I haven't slept for a few days. And now most days I'm never at that, high constant that I was at before I stopped taking gabapentin, but I just have bigger spikes. So I'm lower and I'm good most of the time. But when those spikes happen, they happen, and they happen bad, and takes me right back to feeling that boot, and those types of things. Or what's been crazy is the last 2 or 3 like phantom experiences, I've gotten new feelings. And again, I'm almost 12 years out since my accident. So to experience new feelings is like, wow. I mean, not fun. Not fun that it's the new feeling is somebody taking a scalpel and just like running it along the bottom of my foot and feeling like it's just like, confettiing the bottom of my foot. It's not fun that way, but it's kind of like, looking at the silver lining and the bright side. It's like, well, that's something that I haven't experienced. So, that's a new way to feel my foot. And I do think that there are those benefits of like, I think that there is a benefit to proprioception of understanding where my foot is, and even like the Suralis feedback system, which I'm going to get into that again, because I think that deserves more. It deserves more education on what it is, and it deserves more kind of publicity on like, let's get that on more people, because I do think that it could help a lot. And if it doesn't help, it doesn't help, but I do think that it's a cool thing, and we'll get there. But with that, I like have noticed like, oh, is this helping my proprioception with my phantom foot and understanding where things are, and even to when I'm doing like research studies on how we're controlling, power devices under a socket. Are we controlling that with EMG? Are we controlling that with different types of sensors? Having my phantom foot there, being able to somewhat control it in different ways has made a difference in at least just my cognitive understanding during those experiments and how we're going to move forward. And so I do think that there are benefits to phantom sensation and phantom pain. It's just unfortunate of what it comes with and what that means for us a lot of the time. And again, it's something that everyone deals with to varying levels, and it really is just figuring out what works best for you, same as anything else. I mean, some people can do mirror therapy and that works great for them. Some people want to take gabapentin because that's, where that pain goes away. When there's no right or wrong thing. Whatever is right for you and works for you in your daily life, that's the correct thing. And, consult with your doctor and all that stuff. But yeah, that's a little rundown on phantom pain. It's very frustrating if you're a new amputee and you're thinking like, does this ever stop? Does it ever go away? Everyone's different. It does. Some people it goes away. Mine like shrunk halfway up into my limb, and that's a different thing too. Maybe we'll talk about another day, but it'll move around, and everyone's different. So, hang in there. I think that for everyone it does level out to a certain degree, and I also think that how you lost your limb comes into play with the type and amount of phantom pain you're going to deal with. But it's very hard to quantify because nobody knows. Nobody knows. If I'm talking to you as an amputee and I'm saying, I feel this electric shock here and I feel this hot knife here and man, this sucks when it gets really tense and I know that it's going to come. It's not there yet, but it's coming. I can feel the tension. I talk to amputees about that stuff all the time, and every time it's always like, yeah, I feel that, and I feel the same. I'm like, yeah, dude, I've felt that for sure. I've never been able to put it in those words, and it's nice to have those conversations. But then I walk away and I think, were we even talking about the same thing? And we'll never really know because we can't quantify what we're feeling. I mean, we're trying to put it into words, but we could be feeling two completely different things in completely different areas, and it's a very strange, frustrating thing. But I think that it helps to talk about it, talk to other amputees about it, and be like, hey, what did you do? I used a massage gun for like the whole first 2 years of my amputation, and that helped me a ton too. There are a lot of things. So if you're struggling with that, reach out here, write a comment. If you have dealt with phantom pain and you're a seasoned pro and you've got, things that work for you and things that help you. Because for me, another thing that I've found in the last year and a half that helps me immensely is my hydration. And if I stay on top of my hydration and make sure that I'm getting, electrolytes and everything, I typically am in a much better position phantom pain wise than if I'm dehydrated and, especially if I'm drinking alcohol and I didn't drink enough water, that's going to put me in a bad spot phantom pain wise. So, that took me 10 years to figure that out. So if you're an amputee that you've been around a little bit and hey, I found my phantom pain correlates to this. Maybe it doesn't work for me, but maybe somebody watching this will read that comment and give it a try. And so, put your comments down. And if you've got questions about phantom pain, you're a new amputee and you're trying to figure out how do I deal with this? Same thing, write them in the comments and let's build this community and help each other out a little bit more. I mean, that's what I love about being an amputee is how inclusive the community is and how much we really do want to relate with everyone, and we want to help new users and old users, that we just want to, the community really is so amazing. And so, I guess that this channel is me trying to facilitate that a little bit. So let's start facilitating it a little bit more. But that's it for this week. We'll see you next time.